Hello everyone. In our last session, we have created a power supply schematic. So now I am going to open the previous project. To open the project, I am clicking on this project. Here we have a list of our projects which we have created previously. So we created power supply schematic. So I am going to open this sheet 1. This is a simple power supply schematic with a bridge rectifier, a capacitor and a 7805 voltage regulator, a resistor and an LED. In this session, we are going to create an artwork out of this power supply schematic. If you click on this component, you can see the component attributes. These are the properties of the component. You can change the name or you can change the prefix of this component. So if you don't want C1, you can keep C like this. If you don't if you want to replace this 10 by 1000, you can keep 1000 microfarad also. And similarly, you can change the value of resistor or anything else over here. Since this is a very simple schematic, we don't have to look into the specific footprint of a component, and every component's footprint is present inside the PCB. So we will start creating layout out of it. Remember, there are two things associated with PCB design, and those two terms are mostly confused. One is called as layout and other thing is called as artwork. Many people call layout and artwork alternatively, but remember, they are quite different and they have a specific meaning. Layout. It means that how you place your components onto your board. And artwork means how you design the interconnections among those components. So layout is about placing the components and artwork is about connecting those components. First thing in every design is always creating a layout and then creating an artwork out of it. So let's begin here. What we have to do is look for this design menu where we can see convert project to the PCB and just give a click on this convert to PCB. After clicking this button, the same schematic with all the footprints and all the components is converted to a PCB. So I'm here I'm going to click on this convert to PCB. It will open in a new software in which we can see the PCB of the components. Usually the surface is black because it takes a lot of time to create a PCB and black surface gives us good visibility. So here I am taking a rectangular shape for our PCB and here you can change the layer of any component in this PCB software. So if I click on a component on this LED, I can change the layer over here. Generally, in the single-sided PCB, the components are placed onto the top layer and the tracks are created onto the bottom layer. So there is no top layer but not top copper layer, and that's why we created the tracks only on the bottom layer. This is layer selection where which layer has been edited, it's shown by this pencil, and which layer is seen, it's shown by this eye. If I click on this eye, the top layer is removed from the visibility. Now let's first create a layout of our project. If needed, you can change the size of this PCB. This is completely based upon your requirement and your choice. Every PCB designer has his own choices and his own requirements also. So PCB design usually depends upon where you want to fix this PCB, and based upon that box requirement or the inclusion requirement, your PCB size may change. You can of course use this dimension tool and check for the dimension. By default, the dimensions are shown in mils, which we can convert from our main area, that the unit can be changed from mil to mm. So we'll see once again. Now it is showing in mm. Okay, you can choose this dimension before creating the PCB. If needed, you can delete this and create a new rectangle. Now what we need to do is, we have to place these components onto this surface. So first of all, we have H1. In our power supply schematic, we have the leftmost component is H1, that is the input component. So I am going to place this H1 component here also on the leftmost side. I can rotate this component by pressing R from my keyboard, and here I am going to place this H1, and I can place this H1 here. After this component, in the schematic, what we have the diodes D1, D2, D3 and D4. So here I am going to place the D1 first. So I am just clicking on this component and just dragging this to this surface. Here the trick is to keep the components as possible as close to these connections. After placing D1, I am just rotating this D1 like this. Okay, then place diode 2. Diode 2. So okay. Then diode 3. Again I have to rotate this diode 3. So here I am going to rotate this diode 3. Before that I am going to keep D3 as like that only, and I am just going to rotate this diode component only. Sorry. And now finally I am going to take D4. Just double click on the D4, drag it to the surface. Then after this we have a smoothing capacitor. Then after these diodes, what we have in our power supply schematic, we have a capacitor which is used for filtration. We have a capacitor. So I am going to place the capacitor here. After the capacitor, what we have is 7805 voltage regulator. So I am just keeping this voltage regulator here. After that, what we have a resistor in series with the LED. And finally what we have this power component H2 component. So I am just keeping this here. I am just keeping this here, and I am going to rotate component H2. So we can rearrange this surface also according to our requirement.